If you want her fired, fire me first. The words left my mouth before common sense could stop them, and suddenly 300 people seemed to forget how to breathe. Rain tapped against the 40-foot windows of the Grand Marlowe while chandeliers scattered white light across polished marble, champagne glasses, and dresses worth more than my monthly rent. I was Claire Bennett, 28 years old, event coordinator, professional problem solver, and apparently the only person in that ballroom stupid enough to challenge Adrian Cole. 10 minutes earlier, Mrs. Parker, one of our oldest servers, had spilled sparkling water beside Richard Harlan, a donor who treated inconvenience like a personal insult. She apologized immediately. Harlan demanded she be removed from the ballroom. Then he demanded she be fired. My manager reached for her employee badge before I stepped between them. That was when I noticed Adrian watching from the center table. Everyone in Chicago seemed to know his name. Officially, he was the founder of Cole Holdings and the man whose foundation had paid for tonight's gala. Unofficially, people lowered their voices when they mentioned him. I had never cared enough to ask why. Adrian rose. No anger. No dramatic gesture. He simply stood, and conversations around him faded. People moved aside before he reached them. That was the first moment I understood the difference between wealth and power. Wealth bought the ballroom. Power made everyone inside it move without being asked. Adrian stopped several feet from me. Dark hair. Charcoal suit. Gray eyes that settled on mine without blinking. Your name? He asked. Claire Bennett. You believe Mrs. Parker should keep her job? I believe spilling water is not a reason to destroy someone's livelihood. Somewhere behind me, my manager whispered my name like a warning. Adrian ignored him. Mr. Harlan disagrees. Mr. Harlan is angry about a wet tablecloth. Harlan made an offended sound. I kept my eyes on Adrian. She apologized. The problem is solved. And if I disagree? My heartbeat kicked harder, but I refused to let him see it. Then we disagree. Silence. Not normal silence. The kind that makes you suddenly aware of every tiny sound in the room. Rain against glass. Ice shifting inside a tumbler. My own breath. Adrian studied me for several seconds, then looked at Mrs. Parker. Keep your badge. Her eyes widened. Mr. Cole, thank you. He turned toward Harlan. Richard, find another table. Harlan stared at him. You cannot be serious. Adrian did not raise his voice. Another table. Harlan left without another word. I should have felt victorious. Instead, Adrian looked back at me, and I had the uncomfortable feeling that winning had just created a much larger problem. Ms. Bennett. Yes. When the gala ends, do not leave. I lifted my chin. Is that a request? Something almost like amusement appeared in his eyes. No. Then he walked away. The room slowly came back to life around me, but my manager grabbed my arm. Do you have any idea who you just challenged? I watched Adrian disappear through a pair of black doors leading toward the private lounge. A man who needed challenging. At 11:43 that night, the last guest finally left. I collected abandoned glasses, checked the vendor invoices, and told myself Adrian had probably forgotten about me. At 11:45, the black doors opened. A man in a dark suit stepped into the empty ballroom and looked directly at me. Ms. Bennett. I stopped. Yes. He moved aside, revealing the dim hallway behind him. Mr. Cole will see you now. I glanced toward the hotel entrance. My coat was 20 feet away. Freedom was probably 30. Every sensible instinct told me to pick up both and leave. Instead, I looked beyond the man toward the private lounge. Adrian stood inside, waiting. Alone? I asked. Yes. I took one step toward the doorway, and the doors closed behind everyone except me. The private lounge smelled faintly of cedar and coffee, and the moment the doors closed, I realized Adrian Cole had arranged the room so nothing competed with him. No music, no staff, no guests pretending not to listen. Just rain moving down the windows and Adrian standing beside a long walnut table. Sit, he said. I am comfortable standing. His eyes rested on me for a second. I expected that. Then we are making progress. He almost smiled, but instead he picked up a thin folder. My name was printed across the front. Claire Bennett. I stared at it. What is that? Basic verification. That looks suspiciously like a file about me. He opened it. 28 years old. 3 years employed by the Grand Marlowe. Current address in Lincoln Park. My stomach tightened. You had someone investigate me because I disagreed with you? No. That answer had better improve quickly. Adrian closed the folder. At 9:18 tonight, You entered the West Service Corridor. I remembered immediately. I had been checking a delayed floral delivery near the private elevators. Two men had been standing beyond the corner, speaking quietly. I had barely noticed them until I heard one sentence. Friday. Warehouse 17. Cole will never see it coming. I had assumed it was business I wanted no part of. Adrian watched my face. You remember. I remember hearing two men talk. What did they say? Why? Because that corridor was restricted tonight. I work here. They did not. That changed something. Who were they? I asked. I was hoping you could tell me. I saw one from behind. Gray suit. Maybe 6 feet tall. The other was mostly blocked by the elevator. Adrian stepped around the table, stopping several feet away. And the words. I repeated them. His expression did not change, but the silence afterward did. Does Warehouse 17 mean something to you? I asked. Not yet. Then maybe this is nothing. Maybe. I looked at the folder again. You still could have asked me instead of collecting information about me. People become less honest when they know what I need. Maybe people become less honest because you treat everyone like a suspect. His gaze sharpened. You have known me for less than an hour. And you have known me for less than an hour, yet somehow you know my address. That landed. I stepped closer, anger replacing the unease in my chest. Men like you think information is ownership. Learn enough about a person, and suddenly you believe you can control the conversation. Most conversations are controlled by whoever knows more. Not this one. Adrian moved closer, but he stopped before entering my space. I did not move backward. You are remarkably certain of yourself, he said. I have spent my entire career dealing with rich men who mistake confidence for authority. And what do you mistake authority for? Something I am allowed to question. His eyes held mine. I could hear the rain again. You think you are too much for someone like me to handle, he said quietly. I think I am too much for someone like you to control. Adrian lifted one hand and rested it against the wall beside me, leaving several feet of open space toward the door. He did not touch me. He did not block me. He simply waited. Try me, he said. My pulse jumped, but I stepped sideways, walked past him, and reached for the door. He made no attempt to stop me. That surprised me more than the challenge. I opened the door. Claire. I looked back. The amusement was gone from his face. What? When you leave this hotel tonight, pay attention to who follows you. I told myself Adrian Cole was trying to scare me. That explanation survived until I reached the sidewalk. The rain had softened to a cold drizzle, and Michigan Avenue shimmered beneath streetlights as I pulled my coat tighter and started toward the employee garage 2 blocks away. His warning followed me anyway. Pay attention to who follows you. I hated that sentence. It turned every reflection into a question. Halfway down the block, I noticed a dark sedan parked across the street. No headlights. No movement. Just a car. I kept walking. At the next intersection, I crossed early. The sedan pulled away from the curb. My heartbeat changed. I turned right instead of continuing toward the garage. The sedan turned right too. Coincidence, I whispered, although I no longer believed it. I reached the garage, found my blue Ford on the 3rd level, and locked the doors the second I got inside. The sedan never entered. For several minutes, I sat there listening to rain strike the windshield. Then I started the engine and drove home. 25 minutes later, Lincoln Park looked reassuringly ordinary. Wet sidewalks. Dark windows. A delivery bicycle chained to a street sign. No sedan. I almost laughed at myself. Adrian had planted suspicion in my head, and I had watered it all the way home. Then I reached my apartment door. A white envelope rested on the floor. No stamp. No return address. My name was printed across the front. Claire Bennett. I stood there longer than I want to admit. Finally, I carried it inside, locked the door, and placed it beneath the kitchen light. One photograph slid out. It showed me at the Grand Marlowe, standing near the West Service Corridor. The angle was distant, partially hidden behind a decorative column. Someone had been watching me. A small card followed the photograph. For words were printed in black ink. You heard too much. My mouth went dry. I reached for my phone. Before I could decide who to call, it rang. Unknown number. I let it stop. 3 seconds later, it rang again. I answered. Hello. Silence. Who is this? The call ended. Headlights moved across my living room wall. I froze, then approached the window and lifted one corner of the blinds. A black sport utility vehicle had stopped at the curb. The driver's door opened. Adrian stepped onto the sidewalk. My phone rang again. This time his name appeared on the screen. How did you get my number? I asked. Did you receive something? His voice held none of the amusement from the hotel. I looked at the photograph. How do you know? Because someone accessed information connected to tonight's event after you left. A knock sounded downstairs. Open the building door, Claire. I will stay in the lobby. That last sentence mattered. I went downstairs but kept the security chain secured when I opened the inner door. Adrian stood beyond it, rain darkening the shoulders of his coat. Show me what they sent. You are not coming upstairs. I did not ask to. I brought the envelope down. He studied the photograph without touching it. Pack a bag. I stared at him. Absolutely not. Then I will explain while you argue. I am not going anywhere because you ordered me to. Adrian exhaled slowly. Fine. Call the police. Call a friend. Go to a hotel. Stay somewhere public. Or come with me to a secure house until we understand this. I looked at him. You were giving me options? You made your opinion of my methods very clear. Despite everything, I almost smiled. And if I choose none of them, then I leave. And you make that decision knowing whoever delivered this knows where you live. The photograph suddenly felt heavier in my hand. Adrian stepped backward, giving me space. Your choice, Claire. I looked at the empty hallway behind him, then at the warning in my hand. Give me 15 minutes. He nodded once. Take 20. I closed the door and leaned against it, finally understanding what frightened me most. Adrian Cole was no longer the only dangerous question in my life. He might be the only person who knew why someone else had started asking about me. 20 minutes later, I came downstairs carrying an overnight bag and the uncomfortable realization that I had voluntarily accepted help from the most intimidating man I had ever met. Adrian waited in the lobby beside the black sport utility vehicle I had seen from my window. A man in a navy coat stood several feet away, watching the street rather than me. That is Daniel, Adrian said. He handles security. Does Daniel know I am here by choice? Daniel glanced over. Mr. Cole made that very clear. Good. Adrian opened the rear door. I did not move. One more thing. He waited. Coming with you does not mean you get to make decisions for me. I remember. I can leave whenever I want. Yes. Nobody takes my phone, searches my bag, or decides who I am allowed to contact. Adrian looked at my small suitcase. Were you planning to overthrow my organization with a toothbrush? I have not ruled it out. Daniel looked away, but I caught the beginning of a smile. Adrian actually laughed once under his breath. Get in, Claire. That sounded dangerously close to an order. He stepped away from the door. Would you please get in? Much better. The drive took about 30 minutes. Chicago faded behind us, replaced by quieter streets, tall trees, and homes hidden behind stone walls. I watched every turn. Adrian noticed. Counting intersections? Remembering the way back. You think I would prevent you from leaving? I think I met you approximately 4 hours ago. He nodded. Reasonable. That answer surprised me. The vehicle eventually slowed before iron gates set into a limestone wall. Cameras turned toward us, and the gates opened before we stopped. Beyond them stood a large house surrounded by dark trees and warm landscape lights. It was elegant without trying to be welcoming. This is secure? I asked. Very. It looks like a museum designed by someone who dislikes visitors. Adrian looked at the house. That may be the most accurate description anyone has given it. Inside, a woman in her 60s greeted him as Mr. Cole and introduced herself as Margaret. She offered me tea before asking a single question, which immediately made her my favorite person in the building. Adrian started toward the staircase. Your room is upstairs. Before that, I have rules. He stopped. Daniel stopped. Margaret did not. She simply smiled as if she had been waiting years to hear someone say those words. Rules, Adrian repeated. 3. Nobody enters my room without permission. Nobody monitors my phone. Nobody makes decisions for me because they believe they know what is best. Adrian studied me. Those sound more like boundaries. Good. You were listening. I occasionally surprise people. I am still waiting. Margaret covered a laugh with a cough. Adrian glanced at her. Apparently my staff has changed sides. I was never informed there were sides, Mr. Cole. He shook his head and looked back at me. Agreed. All 3. He led me upstairs and stopped outside a guest room overlooking the distant lake. He remained in the hallway while I placed my bag inside. He did not cross the doorway. Another detail I noticed. Try to sleep, he said. Is that rule number 4? A suggestion, You are improving quickly. His phone vibrated. He checked the screen, and every trace of humor disappeared. What happened? I asked. Adrian read the message again before answering. My team traced the image file used for your photograph. To where? The Grand Marlow. My stomach tightened. Someone at the hotel sent it? Someone with access to the hotel's internal system created it less than an hour after you left. I looked down the silent hallway. Suddenly, the enormous house felt less strange than my own workplace. So the person who threatened me was at the gala. Adrian's eyes met mine. Yes. He paused. And they were close enough to know exactly when you went home. I discovered at 3:17 in the morning that powerful men looked different when they believed nobody was watching. Sleep had refused to come. So I left the guest room in search of water and followed the faint sound of piano music downstairs. The house was almost completely dark, except for warm lights along the floor and a soft glow spilling from a room beyond the library. Adrian sat alone at an old black grand piano. No jacket, no audience, no one waiting for instructions. He played slowly, stopping every few measures as if he had forgotten parts of the song. I stayed near the doorway. You are not very good, I said. His hand stopped. He looked over his shoulder. Most guests pretend otherwise. Most guests are probably afraid of you. And you are not. I am currently deciding. That earned the smallest smile. On top of the piano stood a silver-framed photograph. Adrian looked younger in it, maybe 23, standing beside a woman with dark hair and the same gray eyes. They were laughing at something outside the frame. Your sister? I asked. His expression changed. Emily. She looks happy. She usually was. The past tense told me enough. I am sorry. Adrian looked back at the photograph. 12 years. I could have walked away. Instead, I remained in the doorway. Was she younger? 2 years. He rested his hands on the closed piano lid. She hated being told what to do. I already like her. A quiet laugh escaped him. You would have been unbearable together. That sounds like a compliment. It was not intended as one. The silence afterward felt different from the silence at the hotel. Less like power, more like memory. What happened? I asked. Adrian did not answer immediately. There was an accident, he finally said. Nothing dramatic. Nothing anyone could have predicted. I spent years pretending there had to be a decision I could have made differently. Because then you could believe you had control. His eyes lifted to mine. Yes. I stepped into the room, but kept my distance. And now you try to control everything before it can surprise you. That is a very simplified diagnosis. I coordinate weddings and charity galas. Simplifying disasters is basically my profession. His mouth almost curved again. You make jokes when you are uncomfortable. You give orders when you are uncomfortable. That stopped him. I looked at Emily's photograph. Your pain explains you, Adrian. It does not excuse you. His expression hardened for half a second, then softened into something I could not name. Nobody speaks to me the way you do. Maybe that is part of the problem. Before he could answer, his phone vibrated against the piano. He read the message. Whatever openness had appeared in his face vanished. What is it? I asked. Daniel traced the account that accessed the Grand Marlow security archive. The one connected to my photograph. Yes. Adrian stood. The account downloaded footage from the West Corridor shortly after you left. Whose account? He hesitated. That frightened me more than if he had answered immediately. Adrian. He turned the phone toward me. One name appeared on the screen. Marcus Vale. Something clicked in my memory. Gray suit. A silver watch catching chandelier light. A man standing near the restricted corridor while I checked the floral delivery. I saw him, I said. Adrian went completely still. Where? At the hotel. Near the West Corridor. You are certain? He was talking to someone near the private elevator. Adrian stared at me as if he wanted the answer to change. That is impossible. Why? He lowered the phone slowly. Because Marcus has been my closest advisor for 15 years. I looked again at Emily's photograph, then at the name glowing on his screen. Then maybe 15 years is exactly why nobody thought to question him. By sunrise, Adrian had found 3 explanations for Marcus Vale's name appearing in the Grand Marlow security records, and I had a problem with every one of them. We sat across from each other at a long kitchen island while pale morning light spread across the windows. Margaret had left coffee between us and disappeared with the instincts of a woman who knew an argument was coming. Adrian turned his phone face down. Marcus says he accessed the system because he was reviewing security after the gala. Did you ask him to? No. Then he lied. Or he assumed it was necessary. I stared at him. That is explanation number 4. His jaw tightened. I have known him for 15 years. You keep saying that like loyalty comes with an expiration date for suspicion. And you saw him for a few seconds in a hallway. I saw him where he claims he was not. Adrian stood and walked toward the windows. I recognized the movement now. When something threatened his control, he created distance and called it thinking. Daniel is checking everything, he said. Travel records, calls, hotel access, financial activity. Good. Until then, I am not accusing a man who has stood beside me for 15 years based on one access log and your memory. The words landed harder than I expected. My memory. Adrian turned. That is not what I meant. It is exactly what you meant. I pushed my coffee away. You trusted my memory when it gave you Warehouse 17. You trusted it when I described the men in that corridor. But now that it points towards someone you care about, suddenly it is not enough. Claire. No. You brought me here because you said what I knew mattered. I stood. Apparently, it only matters when it agrees with what you already believe. Silence filled the kitchen. Adrian looked tired rather than angry, which somehow made leaving more difficult. What are you doing? He asked. Going home. That is not safe. Neither is staying somewhere my judgment is treated like evidence until it becomes inconvenient. I am trying to protect you. Then listen to me. He went completely still. I waited for the order. The command. The version of Adrian Cole everyone else obeyed. Instead, he looked down at the counter. Your car is still at the Grand Marlowe. Then call me a cab. He picked up his phone. I will have Daniel bring your car here. I blinked. You are letting me leave? His eyes met mine. You told me last night that you could leave whenever you wanted. I agreed. Something inside my anger shifted. Thank you. Do not thank me for keeping my word. 2 hours later, my blue Ford waited at the end of the driveway. Adrian walked outside with me, but stopped several feet from the driver's door. No attempt to change my mind. No security lecture. Keep Daniel's number, he said. That sounds like a suggestion. It is. You really are learning. Painfully, I opened the door. Adrian glanced toward the road. Claire. What? I hope you are wrong about Marcus. I looked at him. For the first time, I understood that he was not defending an advisor. He was defending 15 years of believing he knew who stood beside him. So do I. I drove away. 3 miles later, my phone rang through the car speakers. Adrian. I answered. Did you forget another suggestion? Silence. Then his voice came through, lower than before. Marcus is gone. I tightened my hands around the steering wheel. What do you mean, gone? His phone is off. His apartment is empty. His driver has not seen him since last night. My stomach dropped. Adrian. Daniel found something else. I waited. Marcus accessed the hotel records 17 minutes before your photograph was created. The road ahead suddenly seemed much longer. So I was right. Adrian was silent for one breath. Yes, Claire. Another breath. You were right. Being right did not make me feel safer. It made the road ahead look different. I drove another mile before pulling into a coffee shop parking lot and calling Adrian back. He answered immediately. Where are you? Somewhere public, which is all you need to know. There was a pause. Fair. That single word told me more than another argument could have. What are you doing about Marcus? I asked. Daniel is tracing his movements. And Warehouse 17. Silence. Adrian. I was going to look into it. Personally. Eventually. I closed my eyes. That is exactly what Marcus expects. You do not know that. No, but I know events. I opened my laptop on the passenger seat and logged into the Grand Marlowe vendor portal. Friday's gala records were still available because invoices had not been closed. I searched Warehouse 17 and found the logistics contractor within minutes. The warehouse is temporary event storage, I said. Furniture, display cases, lighting equipment. Nothing valuable enough to justify this much secrecy. Adrian was quiet. Keep going. I opened the transfer schedule. There is a shipment scheduled for Friday morning, but it is mostly empty cases and rental furniture returning from the gala. Then the warehouse is not the objective. Exactly. You are. Another silence. This one lasted longer. Marcus knows how you react, I said. He knows you investigate personally when something threatens people around you. He knows you hate unanswered questions. He gave you one. You think the conversation you overheard was deliberate? Maybe not originally. But once he knew I heard it, he could use me to make sure the message reached you. I heard Adrian exhale. What do you suggest? I stopped. For words. Nothing dramatic. Yet they felt more important than every order he had given since we met. Say that again. Do not enjoy this. I am enjoying it tremendously. Claire, you asked what I suggest. I looked at the transfer records. Do not go to the warehouse. Do not contact Marcus. Preserve every hotel record before anyone can alter anything else. Then meet me somewhere public and bring everything Daniel has. Where? I looked through the windshield toward downtown. Coffee shop across from the Grand Marlowe. 1 hour. Agreed. He arrived 58 minutes later. No visible security team. No dramatic entrance. Just Adrian in a charcoal coat carrying a folder. He sat across from me and placed it on the table. Everything Daniel found. You actually listened. Try not to sound shocked. We compared access times, vendor lists, and staff schedules. Marcus had entered the Grand Marlowe at 8:47 Friday evening. He had used his credentials near the West Corridor twice. The second access occurred minutes before I heard the warehouse conversation. He wanted someone to hear it, I said. Adrian looked at the records. Maybe. There is something else. I pointed to a contractor authorization form. Richard Harlan's foundation had helped fund the gala storage arrangement. Adrian's expression sharpened. Harlan. Too obvious. Explain. He caused a scene with Mrs. Parker. Everyone watched him, including you. If Marcus needed attention somewhere else, Harlan gave him the perfect distraction. Adrian leaned back. So Harlan may be involved. Or Marcus wants us to think he is. Adrian studied me, then nodded slowly. We verify before we accuse. I smiled. Look at you. Do not make me regret personal growth. My phone vibrated on the table. Unknown number. A message appeared. Stop helping him. Adrian saw it. His expression changed instantly, but he did not reach for my phone. He did not tell me what to do. He waited. What do you think? He asked. I looked around the crowded coffee shop, then through the window at the Grand Marlowe across the street. Someone knew where we were. Someone expected Adrian to take control. I turned the phone face down. I think Marcus is still trying to predict you. Adrian's eyes held mine. Then let us disappoint him. Disappointing Marcus turned out to be easier than understanding what he actually wanted. Adrian and I stayed at the coffee shop while Daniel worked from somewhere across the city, preserving hotel records before anyone could erase another file. Adrian did not touch my phone. He did not tell me to leave. He did not even suggest where I should sit. The changes were small, but with a man like him, small changes felt enormous. 40 minutes after the message arrived, his phone vibrated. Daniel, he said. He listened, then opened his laptop. They recovered a secondary access log. From the hotel? Yes. Marcus downloaded more than corridor footage. He turned the screen toward me. Guest lists, employee schedules, donor records, vendor contracts. Then one file name caught my attention. Emily Cole Foundation Archive. Adrian stopped breathing for half a second. Emily, I asked. Her foundation records. Why would Marcus need those? He did not answer. Instead, he called Daniel and asked him to send everything connected to that archive. 10 minutes later, documents began appearing on the screen. Most were 12 years old. Donation reports, education grants, community programs. Nothing looked unusual until I noticed the same consulting company listed across several payments. Wait. I pointed to the name. Northbridge Advisory. Adrian leaned closer. I know it. From where? Marcus introduced the owner to the foundation years ago. I opened another report. Then another. Payments appeared repeatedly, always small compared with the foundation's total budget. These are labeled administrative consulting, I said. But the amounts keep changing. Adrian searched the records. Emily questioned them. A note attached to one report carried her initials and a short comment asking why money designated for neighborhood education programs had been transferred through Northbridge. Adrian stared at it. She showed you this? I asked. No. His voice was quiet. Marcus told me she had become concerned about accounting details shortly before she died. He said the issue had been resolved. And you believed him. Adrian looked toward the rain-streaked window. I was 25. Emily was gone. Marcus handled everything I could not. There was no defense in his voice this time. Only recognition. That is why he accessed her file? I said. The warehouse is noise. Harlan may be noise too. Marcus is trying to keep you looking at everything except the records that connect him to the past. Adrian's phone vibrated again. Daniel had found corporate registration documents. Northbridge Advisory had been controlled by a former business partner of Marcus. Adrian read the information twice. He was moving foundation money. It looks that way. For years. His voice became colder, but he did not move. I remembered the man at the piano, the brother who had spent 12 years believing his greatest failure was not controlling enough. Do not turn this into another reason to blame yourself, I said. Adrian looked at me. Emily saw it. I did not. Because you trusted someone. That trust cost people money meant for schools. Then fix what can be fixed. Do not rewrite 12 years because you know more today. He was silent. Then he nodded. Not because I had defeated him in an argument. Because he had heard me. Daniel called again. This time Adrian put the phone on speaker. There is one more thing, Daniel said. We recovered Emily's phone records from the Foundation archive. Adrian's face changed. Why were those there? They were attached to the original internal review. Her final outgoing call before the accident lasted 11 minutes. I watched Adrian's hand tighten around the edge of the table. Who did she call? Daniel hesitated. Marcus Vale. The coffee shop seemed to disappear around us. Adrian stared at Emily's initials on the screen. 11 minutes, he said quietly. I looked at the financial records, then at the man who had finally learned to listen. She knew Adrian. His eyes lifted to mine. And I think Marcus knew she knew. For 12 years, Adrian had blamed himself for failing to protect Emily. And in less than 12 minutes, we discovered she might have been trying to protect everyone else. Daniel sent the remaining Foundation records while Adrian sat across from me in silence. The coffee shop had grown louder around us, but our table felt separated from everything. I opened Emily's internal review and followed the dates. 3 days before her accident, she had flagged 4 transfers to Northbridge Advisory. 2 days before, she had requested original invoices. On the morning of the accident, she had called Marcus for 11 minutes. There is nothing here proving that call had anything to do with what happened to Emily, I said. Adrian looked at me. I know. I was relieved, he said at first. Grief could turn coincidence into certainty if you needed an answer badly enough. But it does prove she was asking questions Marcus did not want answered. Yes. Adrian closed his eyes briefly, and I spent 12 years believing him when he told me she misunderstood the accounts. His phone rang. Daniel. Adrian answered on speaker. We preserved the original hotel records and sent copies to counsel, Daniel said. The Foundation attorneys are notifying federal investigators about the financial transfers. There is more. Northbridge received nearly $3 million over 6 years through consulting agreements tied to Marcus's approvals. Adrian did not react immediately. Can Marcus alter anything now? No. The records are duplicated in multiple systems. Good. Daniel continued. Marcus contacted his attorney 20 minutes ago. His attorney contacted investigators. I looked at Adrian. He is cooperating? It appears he understands the records cannot disappear anymore, Daniel said. The warehouse transfer has also been canceled. Nobody is going there. Adrian leaned back slowly. Marcus had expected him to chase a threat into an empty warehouse. Instead, Adrian had stayed at a coffee shop and listened. That choice had closed every easy exit Marcus thought he knew. By late afternoon, the Grand Marlowe had preserved its security archive. The Foundation had opened its records, and investigators had enough documentation to begin asking questions that should have been asked years earlier. There was no dramatic confrontation with Marcus. No final speech. Just evidence. Dates. Accounts. Decisions. Sometimes a man's empire did not collapse with noise. Sometimes it disappeared one verified fact at a time. Adrian and I stepped outside shortly before sunset. The rain had stopped, and Chicago reflected gold in the wet pavement. Daniel can drive you home, Adrian said. I have my car. Right? The blue Ford. I looked at him. You need to forget that file. I am working on several personality flaws at once. I smiled despite myself. Then the silence returned. What happens now? I asked. The authorities handle Marcus. The Foundation audits every program he touched. Any money that should have reached those communities gets restored. And you? Adrian looked toward the hotel windows. I learned how much damage I caused by believing control and protection were the same thing. Do not make yourself responsible for Marcus's choices. I am responsible for mine. That answer sounded different from the man I had met at the gala. Cleaner, harder, more honest. Claire, I owe you an apology. Several. I suspected you would say that. Start with the important one. His eyes met mine. I treated your independence like a problem to manage. Then I doubted you when your judgment threatened something I wanted to believe. He paused. You deserved better. I nodded. Yes. A small smile touched his face. You are not going to make this easier? Growth should hurt a little. I started toward the parking garage. Adrian did not follow. At the entrance, I stopped. The first time I had walked away from him, I had expected him to stop me. Now I understood the difference. He was giving me the open door he should have given me from the beginning. I turned around. He was still standing beneath the hotel lights, watching without asking. So I walked back. His eyebrows lifted. Forget something? Coffee. Tomorrow. 10 in the morning. He stared at me. Is that an order? Consider it educational. His real smile appeared. I will be there. I smiled back. Adrian Cole had spent years believing power meant making people stay. In the end, the strongest thing he ever did was step aside and let me choose to come back.